FPL is almost back, so today we're going to be having a look at those top transfer targets. Who are the players you need to be considering buying into your FPL team this week, whether you are wildcarding this week, whether you're wildcarding next week, or wildcarding later down the line, or we've already used it, depending on the doubles that we've got announced. We're going to go through a whole load of players that you should be considering buying into your teams this week. What is up, everyone? FPL Harry here. Before we dive in, 1,000 likes is the aim. Subscribe if you are new around here as well. And today we're going to be mainly focusing on teams that have a double in game week 34, but we do need to be looking at the projected fixtures depending on what your chip strategy is. So if you're wildcarding this week, you need to be looking for the foreseeable future depending on when you're going to play your bench boost. These are the predicted fixtures that we have on FPL.team from Planet FPL. Now, up to game week 34 has been confirmed. Game week 35 to game week 38 we think are very good projections, very likely to come through as they are in here, but not 100% confirmed, of course. So looking at those teams that we're going to be wanting to bring in over the next couple of weeks are probably those that double in game week 34, unless you're going to be wanting to play your free hit that week. Now, there are a few of those teams that double in game week 34 that we are not going to cover in today's video, and there are a few reasons why that is. The first one is Arsenal. This is not really the week to be buying Arsenal players. They go away to Manchester City. They'll be really wanted going into game week 34, but of course, because of their fixture this week, a lot of you will be looking to buy other players this week and potentially investing in them in game week 31 when they have Luton at home. Next up is Bournemouth. Now, Bournemouth have a really nice run of fixtures and a decent enough double. However, a lot of us are already invested in Bournemouth. The likes of Neto in goals, Abani in defence, and Dominic Solanke up front are still my top three picks, but if you're looking to buy Bournemouth, you probably bought them for when they had their double in game week 28. The final one is Sheffield United. Their double is not great. Their fixtures over the next few weeks is not great, and none of them are really FPL options in my eyes. So we're going to be looking at a lot of the other teams that do have a double, like Crystal Palace, like Liverpool, like Wolves. But this week, we're not going to be covering these three teams because they're not as relevant at the moment. So to start off, we're going to start with the big talking point at the moment, and that is Liverpool. Of course, the double in game week 34, Fulham away, Everton away is one of the best doubles we have that week. Plus, they have a really nice run of fixtures between now and then. The only, in theory, not green fixture is away at Manchester United, and we know what Liverpool have done when they've played Manchester United in some of the games recently, and given the cup result, they might be out with a little bit of vengeance as well. There are options all over the pitch. My top three are Darwin, Salah, and Virgil van Dijk. Darwin up front is just, there's loads of midfielders at the moment. Having a forward like Darwin is a nice pick. With the amount of fixtures that they do have coming up with Brighton at home, Sheffield United at home, Manchester United away in the space of a week, there is a small chance that Darwin potentially gets rotated, given he has had a little bit of a knock, which is why we haven't seen him go on international duty, but I do think he is a pretty safe buy. Of course, Mo Salah is the player that a lot of us are looking to buy. He's probably the best captaincy shout this week and next week, and in the double game week as well. In defence, Van Dijk is the one that I would recommend. Now, you will be looking at Robertson, but Joe Gomez has played a reasonable amount of minutes at left back this season. Connor Bradley looks safe for the time being, but we are expecting Trent Alexander-Arnold back before the double game week. We aren't expecting him back in game week 30, so if you want a one-week punt, we'll talk about those later on. Connor Bradley is a nice pick, but game week 34 is a while away, and we are expecting Trent Alexander-Arnold probably back by then. If we get an update that Trent is going to be out for a while, Connor Bradley becomes a fantastic player to buy, but right now Van Dijk is the defender I would buy just because of nailed and a surety for minutes. In goal, lots of you will be looking at Kelleher. However, Alisson falls into a similar bracket to Trent. They were expecting Alisson back before game week 34, before the double game week, which means when that happens, as good as Kelleher has been, Alisson, of course, will be coming back into that Liverpool team. So unless we get concrete news that Alisson is going to be out until after game week 34, then you can buy Kelleher. But if that's not the case, you can't buy Kelleher in my opinion. You can't buy Bradley because of Trent. So Darwin, Salah, Van Dijk are my top three options. Now, looking at some cheaper players, because a lot of us will be looking to free up money to buy Mo Salah, two of the most sort of sought after players both have a double in Aït-Nouri and then Munoz at Crystal Palace. Both have, I said, that double in game week 34. Arsenal at home, Bournemouth at home for Aït-Nouri, West Ham at home, Newcastle at home for Munoz. However, you'd probably say the double is slightly better for Crystal Palace, although I personally think that. Aït-Nouri has that Arsenal fixture, whereas both those home games for Munoz does mean I think they have a slightly better double. However, between now and then, the fixtures for Aït-Nouri are slightly better. Of course, Crystal Palace have those 2 red fixtures of Liverpool and Manchester City in game weeks 32 and game week 33 as well. So if you're looking to buy a defender who you'll need in both those weeks, it's pretty clear that Aït-Nouri becomes a better pick, even though he doesn't have quite as good a double. Now, in terms of clean sheet and attacking threat, I would say Wolves are maybe slightly better from a defensive point of view, particularly because it looks like Sam Johnson at Crystal Palace is going to be out for the rest of the season, particularly until at least game week 34 and onwards. Now, Dean Henderson is a good keeper, but he's not been looking great so far this season when he's been given minutes, and he was dropped for Sam Johnson, so it definitely weakens them. Going forward, I think they are both really good attacking threats. Munoz has actually scored for Colombia over the international break as well. Aït-Nouri is great going forward. So which of these you buy kind of comes down to whether you'll need them in game week 32 and 33. The double is pretty equal, maybe slightly better for Crystal Palace. So if you can get away with benching them in game week 32 and 33, I'd probably go for Munoz. But if you need them in those couple of weeks, then Aït-Nouri is a safer buy. And then you have a similar conversation when we're looking up front. Now, we've looked at Darwin already. Dominic Solanke is a great pick, but if you're looking to free up money, potentially by selling Watkins this week or next week to go come down like I am and then potentially upgrade one of your midfielders, you might need a cheaper forward. And there are 2 that stand out. Matheus Cunha has been pictured back in Wolves training over the international break, so should be absolutely fine for game week 30 and onwards. Philippe Mateta as well has had a nice run of games in the Crystal Palace team and is just 4.9 million. I see a lot of people going and buying Muniz at Fulham at the moment, and he is a really nice option at 4.5, but Mateta could offer a great alternative, bit of a differential, and has the double in game week 34 as well. The whole thing, again, as we spoke about with the defenders, boils down to if you're going to need this player in game week 32 and 33. If you're going to need him in 32 and 33, then Matheus Cunha is probably the one to go with, even though he might be without Hwang Hee-chan and Pedro Neto for this run of fixtures. But if you can afford to bench him and it's going to be your 8th attacker like it would probably be for me, then I really like Mateta because of the better double in game week 34. Now, looking at some teams and some players who don't have a double in 34, but are predicted to double in game week 37. So if you're free hitting in game week 34, some of these players will be slightly more relevant to you, or if you're looking short term. Chelsea being the first one. They actually have arguably the best run of fixtures between now and the end of the season, are predicted to double in both game week 36 and game week 37 as well. There are actually quite a lot of options that you could potentially pick from Chelsea. They have been pretty hit and miss in terms of their performances so far this season. As a Chelsea fan, I can tell you that firsthand. Petrovic in goal. I get a lot of questions about Sanchez and Petrovic. I think Petrovic is first choice. Is he nailed? Maybe not. When we get to game week 37, when there's a double, if Chelsea don't have much to play for in the league, which is possible, they could still be fighting for European places like 7th, 8th in the Premier League. If that's not the case, Sanchez could get a game, but I'm pretty sure that Petrovic is Chelsea's number 1, given the way him and Sanchez have been playing recently. Into defence, if I was wildcarding or buying one this week, I would go Gusto. He is the most attacking. He is very nailed whilst Reece James is out. The only thing to mention is Reece James is expected back by the end of April into early May, which would cause you an issue if Chelsea double in 36 and 37. Now, Reece James, has a very bad history of injuries, and if he is back, is he going to play both in the double? Absolutely not. Gusto will start at least one in both of those doubles, even if Reece James is back in contention. But he might start one in the double. That's what I'm trying to convey, that he's not fully nailed to start both in the doubles when they come in 36 and 37 if Reece James is following the timeline that we are expecting him back for. Now, Reece James has had surgery, so we are hoping as a fan base that the injury recurrence is not going to be as bad as before, where they just sort of tried to let it heal naturally. So the fixtures coming up for Chelsea are great. Gusto is a great short-term buy. Even if he becomes an issue later down the line, I think he's a good short-term buy. If you want more solidity of minutes further down the line, I do think Disasi is the most nailed player outside of Gusto. Then we move into midfield. I think it's a no-brainer to own Palmer now. Whether you're buying him this week, whether you've owned him, whether you're wildcarding him, his ownership is crazy high already. So Palmer at 5.7 million is still pretty much essential, it feels like, between now and the end of the season. I almost put Nicholas Jackson on the graphic, but the only issue with him is he is on 9 yellow cards. So he's probably one where we have to wait for him to get his 10th yellow card, have his 2-game suspension, and then in game week 35, 36 before the doubles, then we can go and look at investing in him. And then the other one is Newcastle. So of course, the Liverpool, Manchester United game in the Cup. Manchester United winning that means that the Newcastle double has been moved out of 34 and predicted to go into the free midweek in game week 37. And it changes things a lot, and they actually become really appealing with some of the fixtures they've got coming up. In theory, the only non-green fixture they have in the next sort of 6 weeks is Spurs at home. There are options all over the pitch. I wouldn't go buying in goal because we are expecting Nick Pope back between now and the double in game week 37. Dubravka is nice and cheap if you want short term, but there's probably other goalkeepers I'd look to buy. In defence, there are a lot of options. Botman out for at least the end of the season, if not the whole year. Lascelles at 3.9 should be coming in. If you have lots of money, Kieran Trippier, if he's back available for game week 30, could be a nice shout, but he is flagged at the moment. Into midfield, we have Anthony Gordon. He is on 8 yellow cards, so do bear that in mind. They have to have played 32 games, so it's not game week 32. The team has to have played 32 games, which I think game week 33 or game week 34 for Newcastle. And once that happens, then the yellow card suspension does sort of move to 15. So Gordon has to get 2 more yellow cards before he gets a 2-game suspension. It does mean he's a little bit more difficult to buy new unless you're only needing him for a couple of weeks, because we know how good his record has been at home this season. West Ham and Everton are his next 2 at home. And then one player up front with Callum Wilson out for the foreseeable, Alexander Isak, with no European fixtures as well, with not being in the Cup as well, doesn't have too much fixture congestion to compete with, has played a decent amount of minutes on international duty as well. Really nice run, and he'll be very popular when game week 37 does come around for their double. And then finally, just having a look at a group of players if you are on wildcard 31 and you need some 1-week punts this week, which I know is a few of you watching. In goal, Leno's probably number 1 away at Sheffield United. I also like Petrovic as a bit of differential. Gusto in defence, or you can go Liverpool, Bradley, Van Dijk, Robertson if he starts. Salah and Darwin, yes, they're going to be popular this week, but they are great 1-week punts even before you wildcard. And if you want something a little bit different, Richarlison, because we do think he's going to come back in for Spurs, or Muniz up front. The form he's in away at Sheffield United could be so good for him, and he's still a massive differential. So we've covered lots of players that you should be considering buying this week, whether you're wildcarding this week, you're wildcarding 31, you've used your wildcard, or you're wildcarding in game week 35, like I am. Lots to think about depending on your strategy, so drop any questions in the comments. Any players you're considering buying this week that I've missed, leave that in the comment section down below. Thank you so much for watching. 1,000 likes is the aim. Subscribe if you are new around here, and I'll be back again very soon.